Hey everyone, it's Mike from Two-Headed Giant, where two heads are better or worse than one, and today I am very excited to go over this new product that Wizards has put out, the Challenger decks. Now, I wasn't playing Standard last year when the Challenger decks came out, but I've studied up on them and realized that they were an incredibly good thing. And so when I heard that they were making Challenger decks for this year, I was really interested in what they were going to make. So basically, if you guys don't know what Challenger decks are, they take four decks that are like basically meta builds. They're not going to be current meta. They're going to be meta from like the ends of Guilds of Ravnica because, you know, they had to have this item finished a few months ago to enable to be able to print it and get it out to all the stores in time. So these are decks that probably were fairly close to top tier decks maybe 2 months ago or so. And so these were just released, I think, yesterday. I missed out on getting this out to you guys a little sooner than I would have liked, but anyway, so we have four decks. The first one is a mono red. It's called Lightning Aggro. The second one is United Assault, and that's mono white. The third one is a Golgari deck called Deadly Discovery. And the fourth one is Arcane Tempo. That's an Izzet deck. So I'll talk a little bit more about at the end about what we didn't see in this, which I was actually really surprised by. But let's jump into the deck list because there's a lot to go over here. Alright, so the first deck we're going to go over is this United Assault. And this is the mono white deck. And I really like, if you go to the Wizards page that I'm on here, you can see it up here. It's a feature on the Challenger decks for 2019. They actually talk a little bit about, under each one, about where it came from. Like, for example, this was Luis Scott Vargas's second place deck from Pro Tour Guilds of Ravnica, or pretty close to it. It's not exact. They're not going to give you 4 of a mythic, but in this case they actually give you 2 of one, which surprised me greatly. Though there's not a... I'll talk about what's not in here in a minute, but so you get a lot of 1 and 2 drops. This deck is built heavily, and I really like this deck. If you guys watched my last arena video, or 2 videos back, I believe it was, where I went over my mono white that I've been playing in ranked for best of 1. This has got a lot of the same elements. So we've got, some cards are very different. Dauntless Bodyguard basically helps you survive board wipes, and as does your Adanto. Cards that, if they board wipe, are going to make sure that you have extra cards that stay out. For Healer's Hawks, life gain is really important for this deck because you're running a Johnny's Pridemate, and being able to build counters up on him really quickly. Leonin Vanguard, once you have 3 guys out, and it's really easy to get 3 guys out, he's a big part of that. 4 Sky Marcher Aspirants. So as you can see right now, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 16 1-drops so far, plus the Hunted Witness puts it up to 17. 17 1-drops, so, you know, with only 21 lands, you're going to hit your 1 and 2 drops, which is most of this deck really well. That's 17 1-drop creatures, plus it comes with 2 Legion landings. This is a very good card, and it's a rare that was... They only put 2. I was hoping they would put 4, because basically every deck out there runs either 3 or 4 of this. It does have 3 Conclave Tribunals. A lot of decks run 4, and hey, here's the 4th one in the sideboard, so that's really great. 4 Benelish Marshal. That's a card that I've actually not gotten my hands on a full 4 of them, even though they're cheap. Man, my connection is really slow here, so I'm going to switch to the right network. That would definitely help. And so that way these cards pop up a little bit faster. Now, so anyway, the history of Benalia here, that is a major, major piece of this. Here it comes. It's a mythic rare, and the fact that they put 2 of the same mythic rare in the deck actually really surprised me. Kudos to Wizards. The price of this is tanking now. I think they're already down to $6 or $7. So they're going to be cheap anyway, but this is a key component of the deck. So this deck is really great at rushing a ton of creatures out. It also runs... this was one that's I hadn't seen run as often, and I'm not sure if it's just filler or if this was actually in Luis Scott Vargas's deck. But still a really good card, being able to pump all your guys out of nowhere. Very useful. And then it's got a useful sideboard as well, like Knights of Grace. Make a Stand sees very little play. Shieldmare, it's okay. Tocatlis are stupidly important, especially against Golgari / Sultai. Baffling Ends definitely see a good bit of play against creature decks. And I actually really like Remorseful Cleric. I don't think that card sees enough play. So, the thing I also like about this article is it tells you things, other options that are in here. You know, it talks about you could have more Hunted Witness or more Snubhorn Sentries, which were omitted from the deck, or Rustwing Falcons. There's a ton of 1-drops in here. You know, they also didn't go 2-color, which surprised me because, you know, in that Pro Tour, it was, I believe, mostly red-white versus this being the one mono-white deck that was in it. So, but I actually like the fact that you get the Ajani's Pride Mates and the Lenin Vanguards. Oh, and then you also, I forgot to mention... Nope, I did not. That's in there. So, so basically, to kind of round this deck out, you'd want 2 more History Benalias, 1 to 2 more Legion's Landings, and you would take out a couple of probably the 1-drops here. You might also include the 4th Conclave Tribunal and cut some of the Pride of Conquerors. The land base is probably just about right. Maybe you go 20 lands, but, you know, it's not huge. It's not a huge important note to this deck. It's a very solid deck all around. I really like it. This is the one that I might pick up because I actually don't have a lot of these cards, oddly, in card form. And since these decks are only going to be $30 a piece, really good stuff. So on to our Lightning Aggro deck, the Mono Red. This is probably the closest to being a stock deck that you're going to get out of the 4 of these. Although it's not necessarily the most valuable. But out of the box, this might be the strongest. Well, both of these first 2 decks are really strong. So you get 4 Fanatical Firebrands, 4 Gitu Lava Runners. These 4 Runaway Steamkins, they are stupidly powerful, especially when you get more than 1 out. That's a key component of the deck, and the fact that they gave us 4, kudos to Wizards. Viashinos are really important, as are... I love that they gave us 4 Chain Whirlers as well. That guy is great, and especially with the way Mono Blue's running around right now, just dominating, this guy really puts a hurt in when you can knock out a bunch of 1/1s. It also hurts white a lot in some cases. They also threw in a Rekindling Phoenix. This hasn't been played that much recently, but it's a fantastic card, and the fact that you get this in there, that's a really nice addition. It also comes with 2 Lava Coils. Lava Coils are not a cheap uncommon. Last I looked, it was like $2 or $3, so there's a lot of value here, and the fact that you get a Banefire, a lot of decks would just sideboard that. I'll talk about how I would augment this in just a minute. You get 4 Shocks, 4 Wizard's Lightnings, and 4 Lightning Strikes, and 2 Experimental Frenzies. If I'm building this deck, I'm probably going at least 1 less land, maybe 2. 20 to 21 lands is what I'd recommend. You add in 2 more Experimental Frenzies. You may cut the Rekindling Phoenix. You could leave it in there. You're going to want Light Up the Stage. Very good card from Ravnica Allegiance. You're going to want a full 4 of those in there. And you could put some Skewer the Critics in here. Fanatical Firebrand, a lot of people use it. Some people omit it. So a lot of changes you can make. I like that you get your Fiery Cannonades in the sideboard. That can be very useful at times, although it can hurt you just as much sometimes. So you have to be really careful how you use that card. I like Diamond Mare, being able to, in the mirror match, gain a bunch of life. Or, you know, against another aggro deck in general. And then Fight with Fire, getting a full 4 of those to be able to take out bigger creatures if you hit something that's going to be big and scary. The Lightning Mare, that sees some play as it is. So this is a really good deck. You really just need 2 more Experimental Frenzies, and frankly, the value on that Rekindling Phoenix more than makes up for the fact that there's only 2 of those. And it's not a bad card to keep in there as it is. So a lot of good stuff going on in this list, and you barely need any value added to be able to update this for Ravnica Allegiance competitive play. That being said, Mono Red is not going around really huge right now, so it might not be as strong at your FNM, but you're still going to rank up some wins because it's a fairly consistent deck. So this is the Golgari deck. I've been anticipating, I was certain that there was going to be a Golgari deck in here, and I have very mixed thoughts on this, and you'll see why here in just a minute. So the key card in the deck is the Vraska Relic Seeker, which is really underwhelming because of the fact that it's already tanked down to $5 or $6 before this came on. So it's very underwhelming. But, you know, there were other cards that they could have put in here. Now, being that this is a 2-color deck, they did do right with each of the 2-color decks. We have, on lands, we get 2 Woodland Cemeteries, and 1 Overgrown Tomb. And that's Overgrown Tomb doesn't rotate, which is really nice. So we get to play with that for another year and a half. So really good find there. That'll also lower the cost of other tombs. So making this a more affordable list to play when you fully flesh it out, because you'll want to get rid of those guild gates and get more woodland cemeteries and more overgrown tombs in this list. So I find it interesting, the 3 Eldest Reborns that we have here. This is a card that isn't as frequently being played in most Golgari or Sultai lists, but it's still a very powerful card nonetheless. I think this deck, if you took it to your FNM, would stand up very well in a lot of situations, but at the same time, it's not the power level that I had hoped to see out of this. They oddly only give you 2 Fine Finalities. It's a very cheap card, so pick up a third. Every deck plays 3 of these, so you'll want 1 more of those. I would cut possibly an Eldest Reborn, although it is actually one of your win conditions. If you were playing these decks against each other, we already saw that Niv Mizzet's in there, so being able to make them sack their Niv Mizzet if they have no other creatures with Eldest Reborn, and then a couple turns later getting it back on your side, that's scurry. So, you get the whole Explore package, well, almost. So you get the 4 Wild Growth Walkers, which get built on really well by the 4 Seeker Squires, the 4 Merfolk Branch Walkers, but you only get 2 of the rare Jadelight Ranger. That's extremely disappointing. There's a number of disappointing places in this deck. Getting only 2 Jadelight Rangers is one of them. I'm going to be pretty happy with the lands, because I know they don't give you that many of the rare lands, and so getting 3 is pretty nice. But only getting 2 Jadelight Rangers, that's disappointing. 3 Ravenous Chupacabra and 1 Plague Crafter. It gives you good creature-based creature kill. You know, and then you can buy them back with your find, or you can use the finality side to board wipe a bunch of weenie creatures. 4 Cast Downs, you know, gives you more creature kill. 3 Golgari Find Brokers helps you buy those Chupacabras and Plague Crafters back. And District Guide helps you with the mana fixing, which will be more important in this list. Especially, nobody played 2 District Guides that I saw, but the fact that you have more plain forests and swamps in this list, the District Guide will actually help you hit your mana more often to be able to cast your 4 and 5 drops. So it's pretty good, especially since you need double black for the Chupacabra. And so your sideboard, you've got Golden Demises, which are pretty solid. Cry of the Carnarium from this previous set basically replaces that. Fairly cheap card. 2 Reclamation Sage, I don't see this getting much play anywhere. But it's a way to get rid of an artifact and enchantment. I'm not sure why they just didn't give you the dinosaur that you can sack instead. But, you know, whatever they decide, that's what they decide. 2 Murders. That seems like a very vanilla addition to this deck. I don't know why this would be in here, to be honest. Argo's Bloodfast. I don't usually see 2 in a list, but it's a rare, and it is good. It is draw, and against control matchups especially, that might be really important. I do like that they put Crawl Harpooners in here. That didn't become more of a thing until very recently, but it helps you deal with lots of flyers. And for Duress, a very valuable addition to the deck. So why am I disappointed with this deck? Number 1, the fact that our key card here is Vraska Relic Seeker. That's the most disappointing thing. That's not the most commonly played Planeswalker. There are 3 other Planeswalkers that are commonly used in this deck, or some more, some less. The most common one that they should have put in here was Vivian Reed. Vivian Reed is a $22 Planeswalker right now, roughly, 20 to 22, depending on whether you're looking at low or mid. That is the heart and soul of this deck, being able to destroy an enchantment, a flyer, and being able to get card draw off of it. That is a lot better than Vraska Relic Seeker, and being played as basically a 2 to 3 of in pretty much every Golgari or Sultai list. So no Vivian. I thought surely there would be a Carnage Tyrant. I know he's dropped off in popularity a lot recently, but at the time of this, basically most of your top Golgari decks were running 2 to 4 of him, and I would say 2 to 3 would probably be the sweet spot. We get 0 Carnage Tyrants. And I know he's dropped a bit in value too, but it would have been nice to see him in this list, because he's been difficult for a lot of people to get their hands on until recently with the price drops. As he was an expensive card. He was sitting at 30 to 35 for months. So Also, the two Jadelight Rangers, there's a lot more value that I think should have been in here, but I understand that they can't just give away the farm for 30 bucks. So it's still a solid list. It's still a great way to get that whole Explore package together. Maybe you have some Tyrants or you have some other pieces like the Vivians and the lands sitting around. This might be a great help to you. But again, man, two Jadelight Rangers would have liked a little bit more there. Now, the last list, and I think what is the best deck of these value-wise, and the best one I'm going to recommend, especially for you new players to buy, is this Arcane Tempo deck. I don't know if this is the most powerful out of the box. It's a very strong deck, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of... it goes in several different directions. This is kind of a combination of multiple different decks, and I'll explain why. This Izzet build... it has a lot of similar things, and it's gone in several iterations. One is going heavily on Arclight Phoenixes, and the fact that this includes one, which at the time of printing, this was up to about $27, $28 was the cheapest you could buy one. So the fact that they threw this in here, that is a money card. But when you were building for this, you wanted a full 4 of these. So this is going to become a lot more affordable being in the deck, but it doesn't give you as many as you'd want. Now, you do get 4 Crackling Drakes. That is a key part of any Drake's deck. You get 2 Niv-Mizzet Peruns, who is ridiculously powerful. The question is how often you're going to, with this build, be able to consistently get this Niv-Mizzet out, having only 22 lands. I know the deck draws a lot of cards, so it helps you get there on mana. But, and I'm sure that they've tested this, and it'll probably work out fine. The fact that they mainboarded 2 Murmuring Mystics is also interesting to me. It's a very good card, and if you were playing these against each other, this would be a great inclusion because it's hard to burn off the field for red. It's hard for white to get around it and all the little creatures that it makes. So against these other decks, this would actually do pretty well against everything except for possibly Golgari. And even then, if they don't have the kill for it right off, it might do some real work. So, the creature base is really solid. It's just it goes in several different directions. Either you go heavier on the Drakes with 4 Crackling Drakes, 4 Enigma Drakes, and 4 Terramanders, or you go for Arclight Phoenixes. You go with 4 Arclight Phoenixes, 4 Crackling Drakes, and 4 Electromancers. And this is a little closer to that list, or you might go one less on the a Drake and put in a Murmuring Mystic. This is closer to that list. But I've also seen a couple lists where they went 4 Enigma Drakes, and I wish they really had given you those, because a lot of people would prefer to play that list with 2 Niv-Mizzets, 4 Crackling, and 4 Enigmas, with maybe the couple Murmuring Mystics. That would have been a nice inclusion as well. It's still a solid deck. The fact that you get 4 Lava Coils, like that's 10, 12 bucks worth of value prior to this coming out. You get all the cards that you need to kind of mill yourself, the ops, the radical ideas. 4 Charter Courses, that's a very valuable card. It's going to tank way low on value now, but still I'm glad more players have a chance to get their hands on that. A Blink of an Eye is okay. That's a very replaceable card in the list. Dive downs are actually really important to this list. Being able to protect your creatures, especially that Niv-Mizzet. If you dive down a Niv-Mizzet, there's a good chance you're winning that match. Not always, but it's often going to just completely turn the tide on what goes on in that game. And then we get 3 Sulphur Falls. I would have loved if they had given 1 Steam Vent and 2 Sulphur Falls, because the Steam Vent will rotate, these Sulphur Falls will rotate. But these are still really good to get your hands on. You know, great card. You'll want to replace these Izzet Guild Gates, as this will run much slower in some cases with those in there. So the reason I highly recommend this, Mirari Conjecture is also great as a one-of. I don't know if I would have included the second one in the sideboard. And you get your Cannonades, your Negates, some real Disdainful Strokes. You get really good sideboard cards. A Beacon Bolt, I would have main boarded. Oh, we do have 1 main board, so we get both of those. These 3 Entrancing Melodies, that was up to about $5 a pop. It's going to drop way low with this, but extremely important part of this. Maybe even main deck worthy as a one-of, and then the rest sideboard. It's a really good list, though, overall. This deck will be a lot of fun for a lot of people to play. It's not a hard deck to play. You just keep casting and making your Drakes bigger. You know, you're going to really want to invest in some Terramanders, and maybe even some Enigma Drakes. None of those are crazy expensive. Or just go for the full 4 of Arclight Phoenix, you know, especially if he's going to be dropping in price. So the reason I recommend this deck so highly is because this is the one deck that really stands to stick around. And if for you new players, like, understand that probably like end of August, beginning of end of September, beginning of October is likely when the rotation is going to happen. And if you look at this white list here, your Benelias, your Legion Landings, your Benelish Marshals, a lot of your rare cards from this set are going to be rotating out, and you won't be able to play them any longer. Same with the Tocatli Honor Guards. This deck will rotate out. You go down to your red one here. Experimental Frenzy will stay around, but your Rekindling Phoenix, your Chain Whirlers, those will rotate. The Steamkins will stay in Standard. Your Lava Coils will stay in Standard, and your Banefire will rotate out. Jumping down here, the Vraska will rotate, your Cast Downs will rotate, Eldest Reborn will rotate, your 2 Woodland Cemeteries will rotate, and your entire Explore package here, the only thing that's really staying in is your Find Brokers, your Find Finalities, your District Guides, and the Overgrown Tomb. Not a lot of value sticking around. So when you get down here to this deck, and you see that Arclight Phoenix, and I know this price will drop, but the fact that this is almost a $30 card getting put in here that's not rotating, that's massive. The 2 Niv Mizzets. These, I know they're only a $5 rare, but it's stupidly powerful. It's going to go up after rotation, or at least it would have if it weren't in here. Very good card, not going to rotate. Crackling Drake, not going to rotate. Electromancer, Murmuring Mystic, it's all staying. 4 Lava Coils, they stay. The Beacon Bolt stays. The Radical Idea, those stay. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a reprint of Shock again. Mirari will rotate, and your 3 Sulphur Falls will rotate, but a lot of the base of this deck, and it's not hard to put together a 2-color deck, honestly, like the land base isn't nearly as crazy as 3. This is a good investment for you new players getting into Magic, because your deck will stand the test of a short time. It won't rotate most of it. You'll be able to keep playing a lot of this deck and keep having fun with a lot of the same cards, and be able to stick with it longer. You know, I know that there's some players at my local game store that they just can't afford to go drop, you know, $200 on a standard deck, which is probably a very good average. You know, you get your mono blue deck that's probably like $75, $80, $90, and then you have your upper end Esper decks that are running $500. So we'll say $200, $250. They can't afford that. Sometimes even, you know, the $80, $90 deck might even be too much for some of the younger players. But this is great. $30, and you can play this, and you can play with it for a year and a half. This is a phenomenal product right here, guys. I highly recommend, if you're looking for something that's going to stick around. I already have most of these cards. I still might pick up one of these decks, but this is a great find right here. Really glad. Hats off to Wizards on this one. Again, the other ones, they're only going to be around for a very short while. Still be fun to play, and you can still play 3 or 4 months of competitive Magic with these. And it won't take much to flesh these decks out, because this is very inexpensive to fill out, as is the mono red. Golgari, if you really want to flesh this deck out, it's going to cost you some bucks. Especially because you probably have to go splash blue for Sultai. You would spend a few $100s, like $200 to $300 to update this deck. And then it's going to rotate. A lot of it will still rotate in a few months. So my recommendations: get red, get white, get your little Niv Mizzet deck with that Arclight Phoenix in there. Really like those products. Golgari, severely disappointing with, you know, Vraska's really good, don't get me wrong, but you got to get to 6 mana. You got to make it there. And she can take over a game, but you're going to need more than just her in most cases. So, hope you guys enjoyed this, found this helpful, enlightening, or at least had a good nap. Thank you guys so much for watching, supporting the channel. If you enjoyed it, shoot us a thumbs up, or let us know in the comments, which deck are you most excited about of these? Which one will you be picking up? Or will you be picking up all of them? Because, you know, I've seen deals if you want to bundle all 4 of them. They're out there. So, let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys and appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share with your friends. We are growing and appreciate you guys. See you next time. And as you can see, I've got the Merfolk deck up here, as that might be one of the next deck techs that I do, as that is what I've just started playing in Arena. So stay tuned. And thanks again for watching. This is Mike from Two-Headed Giant.